This is the Lyndsay Stafford Show.
Welcome back to the Lyndsay Stafford Show. We are still continuing our series on failures in business, and in life. And my guest here today, Reggie Ford, has some experience in failure. And I mean that in the best way possible, right?
Yes.
Because in order to be good, we have to fail.
Absolutely.
And now he helps other people not fail or learn from their failures. So excited to dig in and have this conversation with you today. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lyndsay. It's an honor. It's an honor. So I'm excited for the conversation, and I think it'll be good.
Yeah, me too. Tell me a little bit about you and tell our listeners, viewers, who are you?
I am a human. I am Reggie Ford from Nashville, Tennessee. I grew up to humble beginnings, and that shaped a lot of the ways in which I approach the world. From wanting to help, because I had received so much help in my life, wanting to serve, and a lot of my work and my business has been from a service aspect. It's been from using my brain and my perception on things to paint a different picture and reframe how we look at things. And so I've reframed how we look at finance. I've reframed how we look at mental health. And those have been the main areas in which I've worked. Cool. And so, yeah, it's been good.
What drew you to finance and mental health? Because those are, they're actually closely related.
They are
linked.
much more closely related than we think. But so finance came first.
Okay.
And that came from growing up in poverty and thinking that the end all be all would be money. Mm-hmm. If I could get money, it would solve all the problems that I had, all the relationship problems, all the money problems, which that is the only thing that money can solve, are money problems. But when it comes to trauma, when it comes to different types of, mental health issues or other life issues that money can't solve, that's just not the case. But I grew up with the mindset that finance, knowing my own personal, building that for myself, and then it got into helping other people with that. Mm-hmm. Like that would be the end all be all. But then that shifted for me probably back in 2019. Yeah.
Okay. So what happened in
2019, I had just been nominated for Forbes 30 Under 30. I was running a business in wealth management, working with professional athletes and some other entertainment type folks and some other high performing, high achieving people, and being congratulated left and right for the work that I had been doing. And I was in the most miserable state of my life. Mm. I was grieving some very significant losses, to death and to estrangement, mom, dad, grandma, granddad, all in a matter of a year.
Wow.
And I didn't know how to cope with that. Mm-hmm. My coping mechanism for so long was to turn to work. It was to bury myself, become the workaholic, to achieve, to perform. And that would numb all the hard feelings that I was experiencing. And in that moment, I couldn't. That didn't feel authentic to me. It wasn't even coping at that time. And so I had an extreme anxiety attack one night. I had been up for about 30 days with very little to no sleep. Just the anxiety, the triggers, they were bombarding me from every which angle. And so I was up and I was playing with my dog on the floor, and I started crying and laughing and yelling and whispering, and every thought that I had ever thought in my life was trying to hit my brain and then come out of my mouth. And so it was just like this just spew of everything. And I had this out of body experience where I saw myself there, and I asked, how in the world did you end up here? Because up to that point, I didn't view anything in my life as a failure. I hadn't failed at school. I hadn't failed in sports. I hadn't failed in business. I hadn't failed. And I was doing some things that I was challenging myself. Mm-hmm. Like usually, like when you don't see failure, you're seeing somebody who hasn't pushed their limits. Yeah. But I was pushing limits, and I was doing things that were unheard of. And what I had failed, though, was looking inward and taking care of myself and loving myself and building a true relationship with myself that I was proud of. Everything that I was doing up to that point was to receive some validation from the outside world, to get love that I didn't receive early on. And in the process of that I was neglecting myself. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that was the shift where, finance is extremely important. And if you don't have it, it becomes even more important. Right. It's tunnel vision. It is the mode to surviving at one point. But then there's a threshold to where it doesn't meet that criteria, mm-hmm. and every marginal dollar brings less benefit. And but our mental health and our our overall well-being is universal. And so no matter where you are in the world, no matter how much money you're making, like your mind has to be intact. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to help that and to feel better about yourself and about your environment and about the world around you. And so that has been my mission since 2019.
I love
on that floor.
So you obviously came through that on the other side and have this mission. So many things about what you said resonate with me. Mm-hmm. One, the servant mentality, right? So in my business, that is all we talk about is how do we serve our clients best? How do we serve those that are coming to us? And everyone on my team has that servant mm-hmm. attitude, and it changes the way in which you work and the results that you get through your work, right? When you are really, truly looking to serve the people that you're connecting with. The other part that I think we've talked about this on my show before is pouring into work to escape mm-hmm. everything else. Yeah. And I think most really successful people have been there at one point where the work was their outlet, and maybe some people don't even realize that it was, right? Yeah. But I think about, I didn't have an anxiety attack, but I had a tumor on my ovaries or on my uterus. This was in 21. Okay. This happened. Anyways, had surgery. Surgery wasn't done right. I was taken to Vanderbilt in an ambulance, had a blood transfusion because I bled out. Wow. So it was like literally almost a near-death experience, right? Never crazy. Like I look back on it now and it's just so mind-boggling, and I can see the Lord's like footprint through everything that happened in that situation. But for me, it was that when I was laying in the ambulance with my husband on the phone and saying, why am I doing this to myself? Like I am working a ridiculous amount of hours pouring into building my business, 2 businesses. Well, actually, I think we were at 3 at that point, and working a job. Like, what am I doing? And that was my moment of realization. While I resigned, I didn't go back to my job at that point and just focused on building my own businesses, mm-hmm. which is what I need to be doing. Yeah. But it put everything in perspective for me. And I think those moments that you have can be so defining on where you're supposed to be using your gifts that you've been given to make a difference for other people. Yeah. It just, when you realize, like, we're working toward a goal for some reason, and it's a better life. But if in pursuit of that better life, your life is absolutely miserable, then what are we doing it for? Exactly. It's crazy. And so and I think about again, going back to for some of us, it's money. Like, let's get this amount of money and mm-hmm. that's going to fix everything. And then you start to ask yourself these questions like, okay, if you had that much money and you had, but you had to sacrifice your health, your physical health, would you want it? If you had that much money, but you had to sacrifice all the personal relationships in your life, would you want it? If you had that much money and you had to sacrifice your mental health and your sanity, would you want it? And I think we would say no to that. And so in pursuit of that goal, in pursuit of achieving success, we have to redefine our definition of success. And for me, it's been every definition of success that I look at now is a both and. Mm-hmm. It's let's get to that money. Let's get those business goals accomplished and maintain our well-being. Yes. And that has to be at the forefront. And it's different for everybody. Absolutely. So yeah, you're right on. And you do business coaching and speaking. That's your business. Mm-hmm. I do some business coaching, mostly with women, mostly women that are building a business, because I can help with a lot of those things. And one of the things that I think always sets me apart and I'm not taking new clients on right now, but mm-hmm. when with my clients is I don't focus on just their business and what they need to do, because that is one piece of the puzzle. Right. But every 90 days we'll go through and go, what's your goal? What do you need to focus on right now? So we'll talk about that. But we do a survey to start our clients of what's your level of satisfaction in the following areas. And it's mental, emotional, relationship, marriage, family, all of those things. Because to your point, you can't just focus on growing a business or work, whatever you're doing in a job, growing your career, if you're not taking care of all of those other pieces that help you to function.
Yeah, we're much more complex than that as humans, and to silo off any aspect of life is doing ourselves a disservice, and it's stripping us of our own humanity.
Right.
It's like we're not robots, we're not AI, we're not programmed to just do one function. Even if that one function is a business that has multiple parts to it, we're more than that. Yeah. And so it's about recognizing our own humanity and honoring that. So yeah, like that is that going back to, so even when I said redefining like how financial management, and I think some people are starting to understand this, is I had early on trauma-informed practice because of my own personal experiences with trauma, understanding that trauma for myself through my therapy and everything else, and recognizing how those experiences shaped my behavior. And there's a lot of self-sabotage in trauma, because you have a narrative in your mind that you're not worthy of X, Y, Z. Yeah. And so when this opportunity comes up, you don't make that phone call. You don't show up to that meeting, or you don't present yourself as well as you ought to subconsciously, because you're saying, I'm not worthy of that. And so that is going to get in the way of us building this portfolio and this retirement plan and all of these other things, because you're stabbing yourself in the back every single step of the way. And so understanding that about people, about humans, and their relationship with money, their relationship with themselves, had to be prioritized in working with people from the financial standpoint. And then, it's more than, for me, it was more than finance. I sit down and I talk to a person, and I'm seeing their life. I'm seeing babies being born. I'm seeing marriages. I'm seeing divorces. I'm seeing all of this. And every last one of those events impacts the money, and all those events are impacted by their well-being and their mental health. And it's like, okay, so this is all intertwined. It is a big web of humanness, and it's a matter of addressing all those things as we continue to pursue our goals, our missions, our purpose.
But you know what? It's so messy.
It is.
And I was just having this conversation with John, who's a consultant at Stafford Solutions, head consultant, just super smart. I met him actually through my producer here, Jim.
He's brilliant.
He's amazing. And I'm so grateful to have him on my team. And we were just talking about, I told
you're
Jim,
so very welcome.
One of the many things to thank you for, Jim. But when I think about what we were just talking about at Stafford Solutions, we were talking about as a consultant, right? So most consultants, they go in and they analyze a business and they go, here's what's wrong with it. Yep. Now there you go. Go fix it.
Right.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
We go in and say, here's what's wrong. Now let us fix it.
Yeah.
And we have a team to deploy and actually fix the things that are wrong. So our whole thing is, we don't just tell you what's wrong. We help you fix it.
Right.
We're not a normal consulting company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are not that's exactly, but it's messy. Like we have to have all these systems and processes and people in place to be able to fix it.
Right.
Most consultants just need themselves. They just go in and they analyze it and they go, here's your problem. And most financial advisors would do the same, right? They can say, here's what I recommend, but they're not saying, but you have the capacity to do this and I can help you do that.
Yeah. And I think that brings me back to like the difference between understanding, empathy, and compassion, right? So understanding is like, I see that you have this problem. I understand that problem exists. And empathy is me putting myself in those shoes of you as that business owner, as that person, as that family member, and saying, I can sense how that feels. Yeah. Whereas compassion is sitting in that with you, walking through that with you, and going on that journey. So I'm not only understanding, I'm not only seeing myself in your position, but I'm walking in that with you. I'm there with you. And so to lead compassionately, to serve compassionately, that's what it sounds like you guys are doing. It's like, we're going to go through this journey together, and we're going to come out on the other side of that together. So the solutions, we own them together, and we come out and we produce them together. And so it's a truly remarkable thing. And, you know, where finance is a small part of what I do now. Like I've transitioned from the finance piece to the mental health space, because it's universal. Mm-hmm. That was the thing. I remember, so I graduated from Vanderbilt University, and I mean, some brilliant minds who've come out of there. And there's one guy who is developing some AI models that I'm just like, what? Like, he's had to send out emails in his language and then follow up with, oh, sorry, you guys don't understand. Boom, 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 boom. Here's like a bullet point of what this means to regular people. And so like,
I need that for everything, actually.
Like, he's brilliant, and you know, getting funding for all this stuff. And we were talking about, you know, potentially working together and about just the importance of money. And I'm like, you know, it's good to take care. He's like, yeah, that stuff doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
And I was just scratching my head. I was like, wow. And this was early on in my business. And I was like, oh, okay. And it just like took a note of, it doesn't mean what it means to me, to everybody else. And just having more experiences of that, where people who had a bunch or who had very little felt that same way. Mm-hmm. It's just eye-opening. It's so eye-opening.
You know, it's interesting because if you poll my team, none of them would say, I took this role for the money. Mm-hmm. We all have to make money. That's how the world works. You have to be compensated, and it's great to have more resources available, right? Mm-hmm. I started my own business because I wanted to be able to say yes to everything for my kids. That's truly what drove me. To leave corporate and leave working for somebody else. Not that I say yes to everything, but I want to be able to. Yeah. So I never want to say to my son, no, we can't afford for you to have a trainer for basketball, even though that's your goal. And then think, well, what if I had been able to do that? What could I have done? Right. I never want to have to say no because I don't have the resources. That's what drove me. And so if that's all that's driving you, not that that's not a big drive, but like, I don't have a number attached to that. I just know I want to be able to say yes. And so, you know, I work to do it. And my team is the same way. It's like everyone's driven by a different thing, but it's not a dollar amount that drives us to do what we do. It's about doing work that we enjoy, are passionate about, are good at, and helping people to grow. And we want to be a who for as many companies and as many people as we can. And it sounds like you're approaching it the same way with what you're going after.
Absolutely. What you just said reminded me of a question I used to ask different employers before, like when I was fresh out of school. I would ask the question, how do you define success? And I got a bunch of different answers from a lot of different people. And to that point, like some, you know, partners at these different accounting and finance firms would be like this amount of profit or this number or this, you know, growth over year. And I had one guy, his name is John West, and he's at Deloitte. And he described success as being able to show up for his kids, all of his kids' activities. And I thought, and this is a partner at a Big Four accounting firm. And I thought, wow, that is something that I can get behind. He cared about his family. He cared about his kids in the pursuit of becoming one of the youngest partners in the office, one of the, you know, most ambitious guys that was out there. But his priorities were that. And that was something that I wanted to emulate. I saw that as being more important than the bottom line. And the bottom line is important, but in terms of priorities, you know, life is short. Our time spent with other people and our relationships that we build, like those things truly matter to me more than what that number would be. So, yeah. Yeah.
It's so interesting because in business, a lot of what we do in operational work is to go in and right size businesses and help them to be more effective, more efficient, and more profitable. And that's all numbers related, right? A lot of that is numbers related, right? But that has never, ever been what drives me. It's never been what drives me. It's about helping other people to achieve their maximum potential. But my number one and first and foremost, and the ambulance ride was the big checkpoint for me of I want to be able to, at 3:00, if my kids need to go somewhere, I want to be able to drive them there. I don't want to hire someone to drive them. I want to be able to drive them. And if there's a game at 12:00 in the afternoon on a random Tuesday, I want to be able to go to it. And I do. And I don't miss anything that I don't want to miss at this point. That is to me, that is success, is being able to have the freedom and flexibility. And we try to do that for my team members too. They all work their schedules around their family. And that's what our company is all about, is designing a life where you don't work your business, your work around your life. It's the other way around. That's and that, I think, going back to what you're focused on, that keeps your mental and emotional health in check. Because when you're working and I've been there, I worked for big companies. I spent 5 years with Nike Inc. I spent a couple years with American Eagle Outfitters, 10 years with All Brands. And I worked for big companies. You're working harder and you're so much more drained under that. And I have nothing negative to say about any of those companies. I had a great experience. But the reality is, when you are a full-time employee where you are reporting to somebody else and you have structured days, you don't have that freedom, and there's stress that comes with that, which is why I don't ever want to structure it like that at my business. I'm like, I'm not putting those parameters on. You have a client to go work with it when it works for you. That's fine. Just get your job done. And I think we have to, as society, open our minds up to, there needs to be more flexibility in the workplace. Absolutely. Because that drives emotional and physical health. Absolutely. How do you incorporate that? Tell me your opinion on all that.
Yeah, I think for one, the feeling of the stress that it creates and all that is because we're living in authentic to our values, right? Your values are to show up, to be at that thing on Tuesday at 12. Like that is what your value says. But then if this job or this obligation puts a constraint on that and I can't get to that, then now I'm living outside of my value system. But at the same time, there's this conflict because I have this money that I need to then allow me to do all these other things that are within my value system. And so it's about, one, knowing what your values are and being very explicit about those. And for some of those to be non-negotiable, right? So certain things is just like, I will not sacrifice these things in order to achieve this. And that's hard for somebody who has seen, success in the traditional sense as the ultimate in value for themselves. Right. But it may be sitting down and redefining that for yourself and seeing what that looks like and prioritizing those values so that now when you look at it, it's kind of like when you go into a business and, again, my background, finance, accounting, and all of that. And you have this person or this company saying that we value X, Y, Z, but then you go to their budget and they put $0 next to it, or there's only 1% allocated toward it. Or it's like, how do you value these things when you're not putting the money toward it?
And in personal life, look at your calendar.
Exactly. Right? Same. And so you're saying the same thing. I value X, Y, and Z, but then we go to your calendar. We see where you're spending your time. We see where you're spending your energy, and it doesn't reflect that. Well, either you're misaligned in your values or you don't know what your values are. Right. And so it takes some self-reflection, some inquiry, some really hard questions, challenging yourself to understand, okay, where am I? Where do I want to be? And how do I get there? And so it's sitting down. But a lot of times I think, just as humans, we didn't evolve in offices. We didn't evolve. And so that's going to be a conflict a lot of times. But how do you make your life work around what you need to do for your family, for yourself, for your sanity? Because it's hard when you go into a corporate space and that's not the culture.
And it's very rare that it is the culture. They'll say that it is. Yeah. A lot of companies will say that, but it doesn't align with how they execute. Yeah. And that is because there's pressure for profits.
Yeah. Because
that's what that's the root of all
shareholders of it. At the end of the day.
Right. Or if it's not shareholders, it's profit. And if you are driven by profit over people, that's the environment that's there. Yeah. And it shows. You can look at your turnover numbers. You can look at the levels of satisfaction. You can look at how innovative your company is. Because if people aren't feeling authentic to themselves and showing up and feeling vulnerable enough to express these ideas or make mistakes, then you're not going to get the most out of them. One thing that I often talk about is psychological safety. Google did this study on across all of their teams and was trying to determine what made teams most effective, what made the teams that people wanted to work at and show up to. And the number one factor was psychological safety, defined as the ability to be vulnerable and take risks without the fear of repercussion.
right? That is what people want in work, but that's not what we often get. Because, part of a mistake may be not meeting a deadline. But what were you doing when you didn't meet that deadline? When you were over here pondering 10%, 20% of your time, you're pondering some crazy idea that would have made the company so much more profitable or so much more efficient or whatever it may have been, but it didn't fit within the confines of what your role was at that particular time. And so we scrap that innovation and you show up and do your deadline, meet your deadline. And we don't always see that. There's an opportunity cost of the things that we don't see and don't experience and don't innovate on. But it keeps our teams and it keeps our people behind, and it's hard. People want to show up authentically. People want to show up vulnerably, and not vulnerably in a weak, frail position, but vulnerably in a way to just express themselves, who they are, and not hide any part of themselves. And I think if we had teams and cultures that celebrated that championed that, then we would see places where a lot of the problems that we're dealing with go away.
I under Nike umbrella, I spent 5 years under the Nike umbrella, and I was in the Converse division. Yeah. And one of the values, I don't know if this was years ago, I don't know if it's still there, but it was come as you are. Yeah. And it was always my favorite because, one of my favorites, I think they had 9 at the time, which is a lot of key values, but we try to stick to 3 when we're doing this for companies. But come as you are, you'd be in a room and nobody looks the same because everybody is allowed and encouraged to come as they are. And I appreciated that about that culture so much. And it opened my eyes. And I look at how I run Stafford Solutions now, and everybody, we have requirements, of course, for, what dress code in front of clients and things like that. But everyone is so unique and operates on their own pathway. And I've got my operations manager who likes to work at 10:30 at night and 11 o'clock at night. That's when she does her best. And my assistant does the same thing because she works around her kids. She can be a mom during the day, and she works nap time and after bedtime. And, that's great. She does her work then. And I just have to let them be how they are. That's what makes them tick. And if you want good people, that's what you have to do is allow them. Most people, I want to hear your opinion on this, because I think most really, really driven, talented people want autonomy more than anything else once they've realized that is what keeps them at their highest level. Right? Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Once they, like that ambulance ride for me, when I laying in that ambulance thinking I earn myself in my job by a significant amount in my businesses. Why am I still doing this? Like, what am I holding on to? Like, hello, I think it's time to let go. Yeah. You are not able to be as good as you could be because you have this tying you down.
Right. Yeah. I think that you get to a place of self-actualizing where you have met so many of your own basic needs to where you can sit there and have that reflection and saying, I do better work at this time. I do better work when I have the freedom and flexibility. I do, that not everybody's afforded that mindset or that capacity to even think that. So the fact that you can get to a point and think that, it shows like, okay, there's action, there's implementation, there's execution that needs to happen after that, because then that conflict and you've raised your level of consciousness of yourself. And then the conflict that comes from that when you're not living in alignment with that is going to just eat you away.
Yes.
It's going to eat you away. One of the things that comes up is the quote from Steve Jobs. And it goes, work's going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to truly be satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And if you haven't found it yet, don't settle, because as with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you found it. And so that quote, it came up for me in multiple phases of my career after I left Deloitte. So I ended up working at Deloitte because of John West and his influence and all of that.
And he's still probably a mentor for you.
He is. He's a friend, and we get together. But so after I was leaving Deloitte, that's when I first read that quote. And I was like, ooh, it's not the people here. It's not that, but this work isn't fulfilling me. Right. I don't love this work. And if I could do this and to partner and make great money and do all that.
And that's what most people would do is stay there and do that.
It would have, my soul would have been screaming at me if I had done that, because that wasn't what gave me fulfillment. It wasn't what was truly satisfying for me, and I didn't love the work.
And there's probably parts of it that you loved.
Yeah. I mean, like I was drawn to accounting. One, is nice and neat, right? Like you have a balance sheet, things balance. Oh, that feels good for me to like go into a spreadsheet. I'm introverted. It doesn't always seem that way, but I'm very introverted. And so to sit behind a computer and work through a spreadsheet and make that thing nice and clean and pretty was nice.
That sounds so boring.
to work with some of the people that I was working with, my team was amazing. Like, and I still am connected to a lot of those folks. To be on that team and to do some of the tasks of the work were really nice. But I was in external audit, and if you've ever been audited by an external party, that's not a good feeling.
Right.
And I felt that. I felt that people didn't appreciate me for the job that I was doing. That was hard on me because, the CFO and the controller and maybe the CEO, they care about it because they know the importance of it. Creditors and stockholders and all that, they care about it because they're relying on our reports. But Joe in accounting, he's like, bro, I got a job to do.
Yeah, you're getting in my way.
You're getting in my way, and I'm not getting paid extra because you coming in here with all these asks.
Right.
And so I got a sense of that, and that part didn't sit right.
I get
with
that.
Me. And I could communicate and build relationships and do all of that, but at the end of the day, it's like I wanted that sense of mutuality, that shared benefit that we were working together with what we were doing with every level, whether it be the CEO or it be Joe in accounting.
It's team effort.
It is. And so I think but like for me, I do my best work between 9 and 11 at night. That's like when my brain is like operating, it's firing, I'm creative, I can lock in, and that's when I do my best work. But to have a work day start at 7:30, 8, 9 o'clock, it's like I'm like an old car. Like it takes a minute to like get going. And I'm like, I don't even want to do anything before noon. And so it's hard. But like being able to, as an entrepreneur, to craft my work schedule around where I'm most productive and most inspired is extremely helpful.
So you can do, if you know when you do your best work and how you do your best work, and you just tune into that, you can get more done in 2 or 3 hours than in a full day of nonsense meetings and, stuff that is not
water
really
cooler
relevant.
talk. And I mean, I wasted so much time when I was working for companies because I wasn't, my body is not performing right now. I am going to go talk to Rod. Yeah. And then after I talk to Rod, I'm going to go talk to Hunter. And then I'm going to go talk to Sarah. And then and it's just like, okay, it's 11 o'clock. Who else can I talk to?
Right.
But then when I left, okay, I didn't do any of that work today, but I lock in. And from that 9 to 11, I get more done than I would have in that whole 8 hours.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
When I was at, I spent a few years working for Express, and I had one boss, and I won't say anyone's name if it's not a positive thing, but you had to give access to your calendar, right? So I was managing, I don't even know how much volume at this point. I don't know how many stores, I forget. I think it was like 9, 10, 11, something like that. Maybe 14, I think, stores. And my calendar had to be visible to my regional manager at the time. It's fine. I'm not trying to hide anything. Put everything on my calendar. I have my workouts on my calendar. Like, this is my gym time. And I remember getting questioned that you have the gym on your calendar every day at 5. And I'm like,
wow.
Yeah. What? How are you done every day by then? Wow. What? Those are the things that it was like, I'm sending messages to my team at 6 a.m. How do you even justify questioning what I'm doing at 5 p.m.?
Yeah. Oof.
And the results are at the top of the company every single week.
Right.
I will never lead that way. And I just refuse to. And it's moments like that where, but you know how many people are living in those situations still where their entire life is dictated by, and you said it right. Like, we work to be able to live, but at some point, so many people get so sucked into their work that they stop remembering why they're doing it. And I was there. I can speak from my own awareness of going, what am I doing?
Yeah. It feels so good because like my younger brother who is about to go off to college, he's in this room right now. And I didn't hear these conversations. I didn't hear these conversations when I was younger. And so it was work. It was get the job done. It was achieve without any idea of how that would impact me from a mental, emotional standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, from a social standpoint. I didn't understand those things. So, and I have a model of those things in front of me. I neither one of my parents graduated from high school. And so to step into a college campus and be the first person in my family to do that.
And Vanderbilt, much less.
In Vanderbilt. And to be the first person to do that, to be the first person to then go and get a master's degree, to then be the first person to have a salary, to like these things. And again, going back to the scarcity of growing up in poverty, like money's going to solve it. Also, like, let's just do, that's the goal.
Right.
That's the goal. And I wish early on, when I was sitting in a cubicle that I had heard conversations like this, because I think it would have prevented or made that severe moment when I had that anxiety attack less severe, right? Or not at all. Like I probably could have avoided that had I prioritized myself earlier on. And so, yeah, for people listening, I think like things can be different. Right. Things don't have to be how they feel when you show up to work. You don't have to feel this incongruency with where your body is, where your soul is, because it's craving something. And if you're not feeding that, then it's time to do something different. And that doesn't mean you have to quit your job. It doesn't mean you have to go and start a business, but it may mean you have to be more vocal about what you need in your place of business. It may be that you have to change some different cultural norms and things like that, but you don't have to be stuck in that.
No, you don't. And I don't think that our society has built out this belief that you don't have to live that way. For so long, it's been like the old school thinking of drive, right? And I am more driven than the majority of people, and anyone who is in my life real close will say that. But I am also like, okay, but there's a time to rest.
Yeah.
Like, on Sundays, I can tell you if it's nice out, I'm laying by my pool and I'm not working and I don't open my laptop and I'm not, I'm just enjoying and resting and relaxing because I know that's what I need to be able to go in the next day and drive the results, right? Think about the exposure that we give those around us to think differently about things. And this is not related, but sort of. At a proud moment with my son, I can say this because he never listens to my podcast, but we joke about it. But we have a rental property and we have a golf cart there at the rental property, and it broke down on our renters. We have a short-term rental on a lake house, and they messaged us saying, hey, there was smoke coming. Like one of the wires got chewed by a mouse and it hit the engine. And so there was smoke coming, right? And I'm not worried about the cost of the golf cart. I'm worried about it ruined this guy's time there. Yeah. And I felt terrible that they had to deal with that on a vacation. That's horrible. Yeah. I mean, I know there's worse things, but anyways, I said, we're going to refund you for the whole week of that golf cart, right? Like they paid for the whole week and they got to use it for it happened on the last day, the day before they left. So, and we were talking about dinner table. My daughter and her boyfriend, my husband, my son were all there and we were just having talk at dinner. The kids didn't know what had happened. And my son said, before I said, I just feel terrible. This happened to them. And he goes, well, you're going to send them back the whole amount, right? I said, yes, of course. And I was so proud that he's been in these conversations enough to know that that's the right thing to do. Wow. And we didn't have to do that, but that's what we would do. And he knows that. So exposing your brother to conversations that will help think differently because most people would be like, well, we'll refund for the day that you didn't get to use. But you still got to use it all those other days. And we've never taken that approach. It's like above and beyond, deliver more than they expect. And that's always the approach we want to take. So that's why one of the reasons I started this podcast is to provide an opportunity for people to hear these conversations.
Yes. Right? Yes.
So for someone who's stuck, we're talking about failure and, you had your moment where it shifted your entire and I did too. And that was maybe considered a failure moment of letting yourself get to that place, but it shifted your entire being and is helping so many other people. For someone who feels stuck in that situation that I was in or that you were in, where there's something, I mean, most people would consider that achievement where either of us were, right? Yep. But it wasn't fulfilling. And there's a difference between achievement and fulfillment. Yep. What do you tell somebody in that situation?
I think you mentioned a word earlier that I wanted to hone in on was driven. Mm-hmm. And I think I would identify as well as very driven in my entire life, even still today. But for a long period, I didn't know what was driving. Yeah. Like what was driving. And for me, it was a lot of insecurity. It was a lot of trauma. It was a lot of things that weren't healthy driving me. And so I think for anyone out there, like just pursuing this, it's really reckoning with what is driving, what is in the driver's seat, and how is that leading you to an ultimate goal. And I think for a lot of us, we have to redefine success. I've had to redefine failure even, right? Because let's just, for easy analogy, like say the top of the stairs is success or is the goal. Each one of those steps toward the top of the stairs we didn't accomplish it, but it's also, it could be deemed as a failure, but it's getting us to that point. And so me getting to the point of having the anxiety attack and having the recognition that I was impacted by this trauma and these past experiences, to then be in the place that I'm at today, like if that's failure, then I'm racing to it. Yeah. So I would say race to failure. Yes. Race to a point where you feel like you failed. Race to a point. One thing I tell people is this is great for if you're in sales or if you're making phone calls or if you're just trying to get a meeting with somebody, is what if the thousandth no, right after that 1,000 no, you got the yes. Mm-hmm. You would run through all 1,000 no's. Yes. Just hello. Okay. Hello. Yeah. and just get the 1,000 no's, because that 1,001 is a yes. Yeah. And that yes could change your life. And so race to the failure, race to the no's, like get 1,000 no's before you get that yes. And you'll learn so much about yourself, about the world, about life on the journey of those failures and those no's. I love that. Race through the no's, through the failures, race through them to get to the other side. Yeah. And I'm going to add one more tip before we wrap up here. Is I don't remember, and I wish that I knew where I heard it. And I don't know if it was, I do a lot of reading and podcasts, listen, all the things, just whatever I can fill my mind with to grow. And I've never been a TV person. I've never been like sit in front of the TV for hours. I'm like, what can I read or learn? Mm-hmm. And I love that. It drives me. I'm grateful that I have that passion. But somewhere along the line, I heard, and this was back when I was still in a salaried job, retail, leading lots of people. What is it that you're doing in your work that you get so lost doing it that you could do it all day because you love it so much? Mm-hmm. And I spent a period of time before I walked away from corporate really thinking about that. Every time I'd go fly to this store or go fly to that place, I would think, well, what is it when I'm here? What do I love the most? And it was, without a doubt, it was coaching people to be better, but it was uncovering what the real problem is. Mm-hmm. And I had one store manager who was a phenomenal executor, but he was unhealthy. I mean, like 150 pounds overweight, unhealthy. Mm-hmm. And this is totally out of the box. And this is why I had to go out on my own for many reasons. But one is his whole individual development plan, which is supposed to be based on the business, right? And what you're going to do to drive your business better, work on communication, work on, operations, whatever it is, was to get healthy, to stop drinking Pepsi and Mountain Dew, start getting on some kind of cardio equipment, get a diet in place. I mean, literally, this was like, I mapped out with him, this is what's going to help your business because you're not healthy and you're not showing up in the best version of you. And that's totally, that's my happy place, is helping people figure out what's wrong and then help them fix it. But that's my tip, is if you aren't fulfilled, there's something about what you're doing that fulfills you, or there's something else in life that fulfills you. So
figure out what it is that you love and just make that a business or make it a career.
Yeah.
Do just that. You don't have to do all the other things.
Yes. That's so good. That's so good. It's like there's a company that produces this one little plastic piece and they sell it to the company that's going to put all this stuff together, and they just do that
just
really
that right
well.
There. Yeah.
They do that really well. And so, I like that. Like finding it, what it is that you enjoy, that you do really well, and make that your business. Oh, that's good.
And then you can outsource in the whole who, not how method of finding people to do the other parts of it. And, you know, that's scaling your business and all that stuff. But, man, this has been so good. Where can we find you? Where can users find you?
So my website, ReggieDFord.com. And then all my socials from Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, YouTube is at Reggie D. Ford.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Well, we're going to find you. Thanks for doing the work that you do.
Yes.
This is so good. We're out there helping people and making a difference.
Yeah, thank you,
Love
Lyndsay.
it. Thanks
I appreciate you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Go ahead and give us a like, share, follow, all the things. We'll see you next time.